Some people take a job to survive. Others walk into one that will change their entire life. Evelyn Silva stepped off the Chapel Hill bus at 6:47 a.m., hoodie pulled tight against the crisp Carolina air. Her hands clutched a worn canvas backpack, and under her arm, a plastic folder held her resume, her references, and exactly 2 printed copies of a CPR certificate. The sidewalk buzzed with early commuters and iced coffee, but Evelyn didn't see them. She only saw the house at the top of the street. It was a gray stone colonial mansion, nestled among sculpted hedges and glossy black gates. A house that looked like it belonged to someone too busy to live inside. The brass plaque near the mailbox read, A. Reed, and Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She'd only seen homes like this in movies, the kind with fireplaces that lit with remotes and fridges that talked back. Still, she straightened her shoulders. She was here to work, not to belong. The woman who opened the door had perfect posture and eyes that assessed like a scanner. "You're early," she said, already turning. "Good." Evelyn stepped inside, her sneakers quiet on the polished floor. The entrance smelled faintly of lemon polish and distance, like everything had been cleaned but nothing had been touched. "Mr. Reed will be down shortly," the woman added. "I'm Celeste, the house manager." From the second floor, a thud echoed, then footsteps, fast and light. A small girl with a long braid and paint on her shirt peeked around the banister. "Are you the new babysitter?" she asked. Before Evelyn could respond, a boy, slightly older, with headphones around his neck and a book under his arm, appeared beside her. "Dad doesn't like the word babysitter," he muttered, then disappeared into a hallway. The girl rolled her eyes. "I'm Luna, that's Theo. Don't worry, we scare everyone at first." Evelyn smiled, crouched to Luna's level. "Well, I'm Evelyn, and I'm hard to scare." Celeste called Luna upstairs, and Evelyn was left alone in the entryway. Hands clasped, eyes scanning portraits on the wall of a woman with soft curls and eyes like the little girl's. Before she could study it too long, a deeper set of footsteps began descending the stairs. Alexander Reed didn't look like someone who ran a children's publishing empire, or maybe he looked exactly like it. Dressed in a navy button-down, sleeves rolled, no tie, he had a face made of sharp lines and long nights. His eyes were the same dark brown as Theo's, but with less curiosity and more calculation. He stopped on the last step, hand on the rail, and looked at Evelyn. "You're Evelyn Silva?" he asked, voice low but not unfriendly. She nodded. "Yes, sir." He paused, glanced at Celeste, then back to her. "You came highly recommended. Studying education, CPR certified, prior childcare experience. And you're 21? She smiled gently. "Almost 22. I take evening classes so my days are free." Alexander extended a hand as he reached the final step. "It's nice to meet you, Miss Silva," he said. His voice was warm, low, and unexpectedly kind. "I hope the commute wasn't too rough." Evelyn shook his hand, steady. "Not at all. I live nearby. Bus ride's quiet this early." He nodded. "Good. Quiet is precious around here. Theo and Luna have class with their tutor from 9 to noon," he explained, glancing at his watch. "Celeste manages most of the logistics, but when they're done, they'll need engagement, not just supervision. Books, games. Outside, if it's not too hot." Evelyn smiled. "That's what I do best." He actually smiled back. "I work from home most days," he added, gesturing toward a hallway with frosted glass doors. "But I'm usually in meetings. If you need anything, Celeste is your go-to. Or just knock." Evelyn nodded, absorbing everything. He looked tired, but not worn down. Busy, but not absent. She liked that about him almost instantly. With that, Alexander excused himself politely and disappeared behind the glass. Evelyn followed Celeste into the kitchen, where the smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air. "He seems nicer than I expected," Evelyn said softly. Celeste chuckled. "He is. Just stretched thin. Too much to juggle. You'll see. The kitchen had a long marble island and soft pendant lights that warmed the space. Evelyn sat while Celeste poured her a cup of coffee without asking. "This place can be overwhelming," the older woman said. "Alexander's wife passed 2 years ago. Cancer, it was fast. The kids never got to say goodbye properly." Evelyn blinked, heart tightening. "Oh." Celeste nodded, eyes focused on the cup. "Since then, it's been a rotation of nannies and tutors. Luna adapts. Theo resists. Sometimes I think they believe if they like someone too much, it'll mean forgetting their mom." Evelyn looked down. That kind of grief didn't leave quietly. The children returned to the study room, and Evelyn took a moment to step outside, to the back garden. The yard was immaculate but cold, like it hadn't been used for joy in a long time. She noticed a pair of swings, empty, slightly swaying in the wind. She made a silent note. Fill this place with sound again. Later, when Luna joined her for a snack, she asked Evelyn to braid her hair, like the girls in fairy tales. Evelyn laughed gently and obliged. Theo sat at the far end of the table, reading, but his eyes drifted to them occasionally. He didn't say much, but when Evelyn suggested a walk later, he didn't say no either. By early afternoon, Alexander reappeared in the living room, phone to his ear, suit jacket off. "Yes, we can adjust the release date. Just make sure the author approves," he said, then looked at Evelyn. He pointed to the kitchen with a hopeful smile. "There's leftover lasagna. Feel free to help yourself." Evelyn stayed until 4:30, then gathered her things. "I have class tonight," she told Celeste as she slipped her shoes on. "The house." Manager nodded. "You'll do well here, I think. You've got softness, but you're not fragile." Evelyn grinned. "Tell that to my feet after the bus ride." She left quietly, the house settling behind her. Her night class was a blur of child psychology and cognitive development. She took notes furiously, mind spinning with ideas for Luna and Theo. When she got home, her mother was asleep on the couch, and Evelyn kissed her forehead before falling into bed, alarms already set for dawn. She returned the next morning with warm eyes and a slight yawn. Luna greeted her with a sleepy hug, surprising even Celeste. "She usually doesn't touch anyone before breakfast," the woman whispered, raising a brow. Evelyn shrugged, but her smile betrayed a sense of pride. That day, Evelyn played memory games with Luna and helped Theo build a solar system mobile for his bedroom. He still didn't talk much, but he started asking questions. "How do you know about Mars's moons?" he asked. "School," she replied, "and Google." He actually smirked. During a quiet hour while the kids did crafts, Alexander passed by the hallway and paused. He watched Evelyn for a moment, cross-legged on the rug, hands full of paper stars, Luna giggling beside her, and his face softened. Not entirely, but enough. He stepped inside. "How's the galaxy coming along?" he asked. Evelyn looked up. "Explosive," she joked. Luna tugged his sleeve. "Can we hang it over my bed after Theo's?" Alexander blinked, surprised, then nodded. "Of course, maybe we'll do yours in glitter." Later, over tea again in the kitchen, Celeste leaned in. "They already like you. That's rare." Evelyn sipped carefully. "Should I be worried?" The woman smiled, but not fully. "Just be steady. They've seen too many goodbyes lately." Evelyn nodded. She wasn't planning on saying goodbye. As the day ended, Alexander walked Evelyn to the door. "Thanks for today," he said. They were laughing. "I haven't heard that in a while." She tilted her head. "That's all them. I just gave them space." He looked at her a little longer than necessary. Even space needs light. Evelyn left with that line ringing in her ears. By the end of the first full week, the rhythm of the house had changed. Mornings were no longer quiet and cold, but filled with movement, questions, and the occasional outburst of laughter. Evelyn became a fixture, not just a caretaker, but someone who understood when to step in and when to step back. Even Celeste admitted it felt easier to breathe. Luna insisted on Evelyn brushing her hair every morning. She would sit cross-legged on the bathroom counter, handing her colorful clips and whispering secrets about her dreams. Theo, meanwhile, began placing books in the kitchen before breakfast, each one open to a page he wanted her to see. He never asked if she read them, but he always noticed when she did. During one particularly warm afternoon, they built a blanket fort in the reading room. Luna dubbed it the moon base, and Theo installed flashlights and hung paper stars. Evelyn crawled inside with them, reading aloud from a story about a fox who lost its way. Alexander passed by the open door and paused, watching the light flicker inside the fabric like stars over a small universe. One morning, Theo invited Evelyn to sit beside him during a virtual astronomy lesson. He didn't speak much, but he pulled a chair close enough that their elbows nearly touched. When the teacher mispronounced a planet, Theo glanced sideways and smirked. Evelyn smirked back, saying nothing. The bond had formed silently, but it held. On Thursday, Luna made a drawing titled Our Family, taping it to the fridge without a word. Alexander stopped mid-step when he saw it. 4 stick figures, him, Luna, Theo, and Evelyn, holding a yellow sun. He didn't say anything, but he stared at it long after the kitchen had emptied. Friday brought rain and stories. Evelyn pulled out old board games and Luna begged Alexander to join. He declined gently, claiming deadlines, but came back 20 minutes later and sat on the floor in slacks and socks. Theo eyed him with quiet pride. Evelyn only smiled when he tried to cheat at Uno. That night, Evelyn had no class. She stayed later than usual, helping Celeste organize art supplies in the playroom. After dinner, Theo asked if she'd stay until bedtime. Evelyn looked at Alexander, who nodded. Of course, you're always welcome. She helped them into pajamas, read to them until Luna's breathing slowed, and adjusted Theo's blanket when he pretended to sleep. After checking on both, she made her way quietly to the kitchen. Alexander was there, sleeves rolled up, pouring 2 cups of tea without asking. "You're not running off tonight?" he asked as he handed her a mug. Evelyn shook her head. "No, class. I wanted to see the evening routine. It's different. Softer, maybe." He nodded. "That's when they miss her most." The words hung in the air between them, fragile but present. They stood at the kitchen counter side by side, sipping tea in the golden light of the under-cabinet lamps. The silence wasn't awkward. It was warm. Evelyn placed her mug down gently. "You've raised them well," she said. Alexander glanced at her. "I've survived them," he said with a quiet smile. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded blanket. "If it gets too late, you're welcome to use the guest room." Evelyn blinked. "You don't have to." "I know." He interrupted gently. "But you're here, and I think they sleep better knowing you're still in the house." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right, thank you." He didn't press further, just walked past her with a calm kind of presence. When she returned to her room, a small tray with water and a note had been placed on the nightstand. The handwriting was neat. "You're appreciated more than you know." The next day, Luna clung to Evelyn's side even more than usual. At lunch, Theo made sure to sit directly between Evelyn and his sister, nudging her elbow slightly whenever she reached across. "Him." Celeste noticed and raised an amused brow. "Someone's getting possessive," she murmured under her breath. Later that afternoon, Evelyn praised Theo's science model. Luna pouted. "You like his work better than mine?" Evelyn knelt beside her. "I love them both. Yours is art. His is knowledge. Both are brilliant. Theo looked away quickly, pretending not to listen, but his shoulders relaxed. During a quiet craft session, Theo accidentally spilled glue on the floor. Evelyn reached to clean it, but he stopped her. "I'll do it," he said. She sat back and watched him. "You're growing up." He didn't respond, but when he finished, he looked at her and asked, "Will you still come back Monday?" "Yes," she said. "I'll always come back when I can." That evening, Alexander returned from a client meeting earlier than usual. He found the kids and Evelyn watching a documentary about the stars in the den. She sat between them, a bowl of popcorn in her lap, both children leaning into her sides. Alexander stood at the doorway, just watching. And for the first time in a long while, the house didn't feel heavy anymore. The following Tuesday, the sun stretched over the backyard like a golden invitation. Luna stood at the edge of the patio, eyes fixed on the swing set as if it were a relic from another life. "We haven't played out here in a long time," she said. Theo stayed back, arms crossed, wary but watching. Evelyn placed a basket of markers and juice boxes on the patio table. "The weather's too perfect to waste," she said, not forcing anything. Luna stepped forward first, then slowly climbed onto the swing. The creak of the chain was sharp at first, like a ghost waking up, but softened quickly with motion. Theo eventually sat on the grass, legs stretched out, picking at the clover. Evelyn sat beside him but didn't speak. After a moment, he looked at her. "It feels weird," he muttered. "Like we're not supposed to have fun here." She glanced at him, thoughtful. "Maybe that's why we should." They stayed outside the entire afternoon. Luna drew chalk stars on the stone tiles, narrating made-up stories as she moved. Theo built a small city with twigs and stones. Evelyn just listened, adding to the stories when prompted. No phones, no alarms, only sun and space and sound. Later that week, Luna approached Evelyn with a drawing and an idea. "We should build a secret hideout," she whispered. "One mom can visit in dreams." Evelyn paused, moved by the tenderness of the idea. "Let's do it," she replied, not questioning the magic. "But we'll need help," Theo volunteered. First, he pulled old boxes from the garage and helped hammer together a frame under the old oak tree. Evelyn assisted where needed, letting them take the lead. Luna painted the inside with stars and moons. They called it the Sky Place. Evelyn drew a small heart near the doorway. Alexander found them mid-afternoon, dust in his hair, sleeves rolled up, briefcase still in hand. He watched for a moment before clearing his throat. "Need a builder?" Theo looked up, surprised. "You know how to build?" Alexander chuckled. "I build companies. Same idea, fewer nails." He joined in, helping reinforce the structure, lifting beams the children couldn't manage. Evelyn handed him tools without needing to ask. Their coordination was quiet, efficient, seamless, like they'd done this 100 times before. Even Theo noticed, pausing once to glance between them. As they worked, Alexander told Luna stories about how he and her mother used to garden under that same tree. She was terrible with plants, he laughed softly. But she liked the dirt on her hands, said it made her feel real. Luna leaned against him for a moment. "I miss her so much sometimes, it hurts." Alexander tightened the final knot on the canvas roof just as the sun began to dip behind the trees. The little hideout now stood proud beneath the oak, glowing with the colors Luna had painted and the fingerprints of a long afternoon. Theo dusted, his hands on his jeans. "It's not bad," he admitted. "Better than most forts in books." Evelyn leaned against the tree trunk, wiping paint off her fingers with a cloth. Luna crawled inside the small space and sighed dramatically. "It's perfect. Mom would have loved it." Alexander looked down, his smile soft. She would have. There was no weight in his voice this time, only memory. As twilight deepened, Celeste appeared at the back door with a gentle wave. "Dinner in 30, she called. "Clean up before you bring all that backyard into my floors." Evelyn stretched her arms overhead, the ache of honest work settling into her shoulders. Alexander glanced at her. "You heading straight to class after?" She nodded. "Yeah, just one tonight. It starts at 8. I'll change quickly and head out." He wiped his hands on a rag, thoughtful. "I could give you a ride if you don't mind. You've been at it all day." She blinked, surprised. "Oh, that's really kind of you, but I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble," he said casually. "I have a few errands over that way. It's on the way, and I've got the better playlist." Evelyn raised a brow, half smiling. "You're trying to compete with my bus driver?" He grinned. "Not unless he has jazz and Nina Simone in rotation." She chuckled. "Fine, I'll get my bag." As the kids washed up and Celeste handled dinner prep, Evelyn returned freshly dressed in jeans, sneakers, and a navy sweater. She carried her school tote and a water bottle with a dozen worn stickers. Alexander was already at the car, his sleeves rolled again, jacket in the passenger seat. The ride was quiet at first. Chapel Hill blurred past the windows as streetlights flickered on. Evelyn looked out as the familiar brick buildings of UNC's campus came into view. "Thanks again," she said. "I usually don't mind the bus, but today was a lot." He nodded. "A good lot, I hope." She smiled. "Yeah, a really good lot." They stopped near the main quad entrance. Students crossed the lawn with laptops and coffee, the evening campus buzzing with low conversation. Alexander tapped the steering wheel once, then turned toward her. "I've got about an hour of things to handle around here. Would you let me take you out for a drink after class?" Evelyn hesitated, caught off guard. "Like coffee?" He nodded. "Or tea. Or something stronger if today called for it. No pressure, just you've done a lot for them. I thought it'd be nice to say thanks." She studied his face. There was no expectation in his tone, just presence and sincerity. "Okay," she said softly. "One drink." He smiled, subtle and genuine. "Great, I'll be waiting right here. Don't worry, I know how to entertain myself. I might even buy a book I won't finish." Evelyn laughed under her breath. "Sounds on brand." She stepped out, slung her tote over her shoulder, and paused before closing the door. "Thank you again." He waited until she was inside before pulling away. Inside the classroom, Evelyn found it harder to focus than usual. Her notes were messier, her gaze drifting to the window more than to the board. She didn't feel flustered, just aware that someone was thinking about her outside this campus, someone who hadn't looked at her like she was temporary. The hour passed quickly. When she walked out, he was there, parked in the same spot, leaning against the car with his phone in hand. He looked up the moment he saw her, pocketed the phone, and opened the passenger door without a word. They drove into the downtown district, settling on a small cafe tucked beside a bookstore. It was quiet, mostly students and professors nursing, mugs and laptops. They chose a table in the back, dimly lit, the kind of space that allowed pauses without pressure. She ordered chamomile tea. He went with black coffee. They didn't rush, they didn't talk about the kids, they talked about stories, favorite books, the danger of cliches, the beauty of predictable endings. Evelyn confessed she'd always wanted to write children's books. Alexander didn't laugh. He listened. "You should," he said, folding his hands around his cup. "You understand what most people miss." She tilted her head. "Which is?" He met her gaze. "That children don't need to be distracted. They need to be seen." She didn't answer right away. but something in her chest tightened. Outside, the town was quiet. Inside, their drinks slowly cooled as the warmth between them held. They left the cafe just past 9, the sky a dark canvas brushed with orange haze from the city lights. Alexander opened the door for her again, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The car ride back was quieter this time, but not uncomfortable. Evelyn leaned her forehead lightly against the window, the tea still warming her hands. As they turned onto her street, he slowed the car gently. "Thanks for saying yes," he said. "I don't do that often." She looked over. "You mean take out your employees?" He laughed, low and real. "No, I mean talk, after work, like this, about books and dreams." She didn't respond, but the silence spoke enough. They stopped in front of her apartment building, a modest place with brick walls and soft porch lights. Evelyn turned to him, one hand on the door handle. "The kids, they're changing. It's not just me. You've softened too." Alexander gave a small nod. "Maybe I forgot what softness felt like." She opened the door, then paused. "Have a good night, Mr. Reed." He smirked. "After tonight, I think you've earned the right to drop the mister." She smiled. "Good night, Alexander." She stepped out, pulled the door closed, and didn't look back. He waited until the light in her hallway turned on before he drove away. Inside her room, Evelyn dropped her bag and sat on the edge of the bed. Something about the night had cracked open a space she'd boarded up long ago. She didn't change clothes, didn't check her phone. She pulled out a notebook she hadn't used in months and began to write. It wasn't a letter, and it wasn't poetry. It was more like a confession to herself. How being around them felt like holding a bird too tightly, and how Alexander's voice sometimes stayed in her head longer than the lines of her textbooks. She ended it with a question. "What am I afraid?" For the next few days at the Reed house moved like a song with no chorus. Refrains came in the form of glances, unfinished sentences, and hands that brushed briefly when passing cups of juice or baskets of laundry. Neither Evelyn nor Alexander said anything, but the children noticed first. Theo became a bit more watchful. He clung closer to Alexander during family dinners and asked Evelyn fewer random facts. One afternoon, as Evelyn tied Luna's shoe, Theo interrupted to correct her knot, unnecessarily. She smiled and let him. But later, in the kitchen, Celeste chuckled. "He's feeling replaced." Evelyn raised a brow. "By me?" Celeste stirred the soup, amused. "Not exactly, but boys sense when something's shifting, especially if it involves their dad." Evelyn blushed, turning to organize the cabinet. "Nothing's shifting." Celeste smiled knowingly. "Sure, that's why your hands shake when he says your name." One morning, Luna asked if Evelyn had ever been in love. She froze, a spoonful of oatmeal halfway to her mouth. "I'm not sure," she replied. Luna nodded like a wise old woman. "You'd know. It makes your chest feel like balloons and bricks at the same time." Evelyn laughed, but the truth lodged in her throat. That afternoon, Alexander came home early and found Evelyn organizing the bookshelf in the den. He stepped inside, picked up a book, and opened it at random. "You know I used to read aloud to her, my wife." Evelyn looked up. He didn't meet her gaze. "She'd laugh at the voices I gave the villains." Evelyn sat slowly on the armrest of the couch. "You don't talk about her much." Alexander nodded. "I didn't know how to, with anyone. But now, it feels like I can remember her without shattering." He closed the book. "And maybe that's because you brought life back into this house." There was a beat, just enough time for a breath to catch. "I didn't plan on it," Evelyn whispered. He finally met her eyes. "I didn't plan on you, before either. could say more. Luna's laughter rang down the hallway. The moment passed, but it didn't dissolve. It just waited. Later that night, Evelyn sat beside Theo on the floor, building Lego cities. He looked at her unblinking. "You like my dad," he said. Not a question, just a fact. Evelyn hesitated. "I like all of you." Theo frowned. "But you really like him." She gently placed a piece on the structure. "Is that a bad thing?" Theo looked down. "It's just, we lost someone already. I don't want to lose someone again." Evelyn reached over and placed a hand on his. "I'm not here to replace anyone, Theo, just to be someone new." He didn't smile, but he didn't move away either. That night he asked her to read 2 chapters instead of 1. Back in the kitchen, Celeste handed Alexander a glass of water. "If you wait too long," she said quietly, "you'll lose her to fear." Alexander sipped, brow tense. "She's 21. I'm a father of 2. Celeste raised her brow. "And yet she looks at you like you're the safest thing she's ever known." Alexander said nothing, but he didn't deny it. The days that followed were marked by glances held longer than they should have been, and conversations that hovered just past professional. Evelyn and Alexander existed in a rhythm now, sharing coffee in the morning, reviewing drawings Luna taped to the fridge, occasionally exchanging books like secret messages. Evelyn noticed how he always remembered the smallest things. Her preferred tea, the author she quoted in passing, the playlist she liked when cooking. He never made it romantic, never crossed the invisible line, but there was something there, undeniable and quiet, like a song beneath the surface. One afternoon, they sat on opposite ends of the couch while the kids played outside. They discussed education policy and children's literature. But the tone had shifted. His knee brushed hers when he leaned to show her a passage. He didn't move it. Neither did she. Theo, however, had grown more withdrawn. He still asked questions, still helped Luna with projects, but there was distance in his eyes. When Evelyn complimented his drawings, he mumbled. When Alexander asked him to join dinner, he declined more often. He wasn't angry. He was scared. One evening, while helping Luna with her reading log, Evelyn glanced toward Theo's room. His door was shut, music on. Alexander noticed. "He's pulling back," he said quietly. "It happens sometimes." Evelyn nodded. "I know. He's testing if I'm real or if I'll leave too." Alexander turned his head. "And will you?" She met his gaze. "Not unless I have to." He looked away first. "Then we'll give him time." They didn't speak after that, but their silence felt like an understanding, not avoidance. That Thursday, Evelyn had an important exam and told Celeste she wouldn't be in until the following afternoon. "Text me if anything comes up," she said, gathering her notes. Celeste nodded. "We'll survive one day, but you'll be missed." Evelyn smiled, but a part of her chest tightened as she stepped outside. The next morning, Theo woke up early. He wandered into the kitchen and didn't see Evelyn making pancakes. He sat at the table, quiet. Luna chattered as usual, but Theo barely touched his food. By noon, he had shut himself in his room again. Celeste knocked once, but he didn't respond. By early afternoon, Theo's breathing had changed. Shallow, quick, tight. Celeste found him curled in the corner of his bed, gripping the edge of a sweater Evelyn had left behind days ago. His eyes were wide but not wet, just hollow. "Is she gone?" he whispered. "Is she leaving too?" Celeste called Alexander immediately. Within minutes, he was home. He found Theo sitting on the floor, knees pulled in. When Alexander knelt beside him, Theo barely looked up. "I knew it," he murmured. I knew she was temporary like the rest. Alexander's throat tightened. She's not, he said, gently. She'll be back. He sat with Theo until the boy's breathing steadied. Then, without needing to ask, he pulled out his phone and called Evelyn. I don't want to panic you, he said when she answered. But Theo's not okay. Today. There was rustling on the other end. I'm on my way. Evelyn arrived just after 5. She barely made it inside before Theo ran to her. No words, just arms around her waist, face buried against her. She dropped everything and knelt, holding him tightly. I'm here, she whispered. I'm not leaving, I'm right here. Luna stood nearby, watching, silent. Alexander stayed back by the doorway, something unreadable in his expression. Part guilt, part gratitude. Evelyn looked up at him once, eyes shining. He gave her a small nod and mouthed, "Thank you." That night Evelyn stayed for dinner, and Alexander didn't try to hide how often he looked at her. She was quieter, more introspective, but her presence was grounding. When Theo asked her to read to him that night, Alexander sat by the door, listening like a boy who never had this growing up. After the kids were asleep, Evelyn stepped into the kitchen to grab water. Alexander followed, his footsteps softer than usual, the air between them thick with something unsaid. She turned to speak, but before a word could escape, he stepped forward and gently pulled her into an embrace. His arms were strong, but his hold was uncertain, like someone remembering how to ask without words. Evelyn stiffened for a second, surprised, but his warmth surrounded her with such intention that she slowly relaxed. Her own arms moved around. Him, resting on his back. He didn't speak, just pressed his cheek against hers, letting out a quiet breath near her neck. The sound made her chest tighten. Then, without warning, he pulled back just enough to meet her gaze, eyes soft, questioning, but already lost, and then kissed her. It was hesitant, searching, not like a man with experience, but like someone reaching for something fragile. She kissed him back, not because she had planned to, but because every inch of her had already decided. Their kiss deepened slowly, then all at once. They moved together, like gravity had finally pulled them in. No need for explanation, no need for permission. When they reached his bedroom, the light stayed dim, and their clothes were removed like confessions, one layer at a time, with reverence. He touched her like she was something rare. Not perfect, but precious. She responded with everything she'd ever held back, every look, every almost, every breath she dared not take too loudly in his presence. It was more than she had dreamed. It was real. That night, time bent. They didn't rush. They rediscovered. She felt him tremble more than once, not from nerves, but from release. He kissed her wrist after every embrace, as if thanking her for staying. She ran her fingers along his back, memorizing the shape of someone who never thought he'd be touched again. Sometime after 2, she woke to find him already watching her. He didn't say anything, just pulled her back toward him, gently, and kissed her shoulder, and again, and again. This time he didn't hold back. He gave her everything, his want, his shame, his need to feel worthy again. She took it all, and offered back something softer than forgiveness, something deeper than comfort, something that felt, for the first time, like love. In the mornings that followed, nothing was said aloud, but everything had changed. There were glances over coffee, fingers that brushed too long when passing a book, moments in hallways where silence pressed against the walls like a promise. They lived in a quiet, hidden rhythm. Alexander would meet her in the guest room after. The children were asleep. Or she would wait for him, already curled up, already his. There was laughter, there were long talks. There were also nights of nothing but holding each other in the dark. Celeste noticed, of course. She never asked, she never judged. One morning she handed Evelyn a fresh towel without comment and smiled knowingly. "If I'm covering for you, too," she said, "at least let me teach you how to sneak down the hall without creaking the floor." They laughed. Then they hushed, because neither of them had said the word love out loud. Not yet. One night after the kids had gone to bed, Evelyn slipped into Alexander's room, fully dressed, her hair still damp from the shower. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, shirt half-buttoned. "I never thought I'd feel this again," he said softly. "Like young love." At 38, she sat beside him, a smile pulling at her lips. "You're still young, you just hide it behind expensive watches and paperwork." He chuckled, leaning his head against hers. "And you make me feel like a version of myself I thought had died with her." She turned, kissed him softly. "That part of you was just waiting. It never really died." Later that night he came to her room. No hesitation. No pretense. He didn't knock. She opened the door before he could, as if she already knew. He didn't say a word, just pulled her in and showed her in every way how much he wanted to stay in this story. He kissed her forehead, then her collarbone, then lower, and all the parts of him he never shared before, the broken parts, the scared parts, came alive in her hands. By morning, neither of them wanted to leave the bed, but they knew the day was waiting. By the end of that week, Evelyn had memorized the creak of every floorboard, the exact moment Alexander's door clicked shut, and the smile he wore only for her, soft, crooked, full of disbelief. In the daylight, they stayed careful. In the dark, they were real. They spoke in coded looks during meals, exchanged subtle touches when passing plates or books. Theo remained guarded, but Luna had begun drawing 5 people instead of 4 in her crayon sketches. Celeste simply observed, folding laundry with a small, unreadable smile. One afternoon, Evelyn received an email that made her hands tremble. A fellowship she had applied to months ago, almost out of routine, had responded. She'd been selected. A 9-month position assisting in a child development research center in Boston. Fully paid. Prestigious. Unexpected. She didn't answer the email. Not yet. Instead, she sat in the garden, phone on her lap, staring at the flowers near the oak. The same place where she had once helped build dreams with sticks and stars. That evening, Alexander noticed the quiet shift in her. She wasn't distant, just elsewhere. When he found her alone in the guest room, brushing her hair, he leaned in the doorway. "You're quieter tonight," he said. "Something happen?" Evelyn turned, met his eyes, and hesitated. "I got an offer," she said. "A fellowship, in Boston. I didn't think I'd actually get it." His face didn't change at first, then he stepped closer. "Is it what you want?" She took a breath. "I don't know anymore." He nodded slowly, then touched her wrist. "I don't want to be. The reason you don't go." She tilted her head. "But you might be the reason I stay." The silence that followed felt both warm and impossible. He kissed her hand, but said nothing more. The next morning, Celeste handed Alexander a cup of coffee and lingered longer than usual. "She's going to be offered the world, you know," she said plainly. He sipped quiet. "I know." Celeste looked at him. "And the world doesn't wait for men who hesitate." At dinner that night, Evelyn helped Luna with her napkin, smiled through conversation, answered Theo's questions, but her eyes wandered toward Alexander's more often. He never stopped looking back. The children didn't understand the weight between them, but they felt it. Later in the hallway, Alexander pulled Evelyn aside briefly. "Tell me what you're thinking." She swallowed. "I'm thinking this house became my home without permission. I'm thinking I wasn't supposed to fall for a widowed father and 2 grieving children. But I did." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I wasn't supposed to let anyone in again. But I did. That night, they didn't sleep together. Not out of distance, but reverence." Evelyn stayed in her room, wide awake, running her fingers along the spine of a book Alexander had once given her. A note was scribbled inside. "For when you forget how bright you are." Theo had begun warming again, slowly, but he sensed something shifting. When Evelyn helped him with a science diagram, he asked suddenly, "Are you leaving us?" She froze. "Why would you think that?" He shrugged, eyes down. "People always leave after the good parts." She knelt beside him, heart aching. "If I ever leave, it won't be because I wanted to. It'll be because something bigger than—" he asked. "But nothing could take you out of my heart, nothing." He nodded, then leaned against her arm. The next day she began drafting her response to the fellowship. She typed, deleted, typed again, saved it in drafts. That evening, Alexander found her in the backyard alone, sitting on the swing Luna once refused to touch. "You don't have to decide yet," he said gently. She didn't look at him. "But if I wait too long, someone else will take the spot. That's how it works." Alexander took a breath, stepping closer. "Then let it pass," he said softly. "Let it go, because I don't want you to leave." She turned to face him, stunned. His voice didn't rise. It didn't plead. It was steady. "I want you here with me, with them. Not because it's easier, but because it's right. You make this house a home again. You make me remember what it's like to breathe." Evelyn blinked, her throat tightening. "Are you asking me to stay?" He nodded. "I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as the man who fell in love with you watching you read bedtime stories and wipe pasta sauce off Luna's chin." She didn't cry, but something inside her cracked, the kind that happens only when you've been holding in every good thing. "Then I'll stay," she whispered. "Not for the job, for the love." The next morning, Alexander made quiet calls and arrangements. By afternoon, he surprised the house. 10 days at a coastal resort in Wrightsville Beach, private bungalow, full access to kids' activities, a spa and silence for them all to be a family. Not in pieces, but whole. Evelyn was stunned. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I don't need a vacation." He looked at her, amused. "This isn't a vacation, it's a memory." Celeste, overhearing, offered to come along. "Someone needs to keep the children alive while you two pretend to sleep in." They drove in one car, full of snacks, music, and open windows. Luna played DJ. Theo stared out the window, but with softness now, like he had decided she wasn't leaving, and his heart had loosened its grip. Evelyn looked back from the passenger seat often, smiling. At the resort, they were given 2 adjoining suites in a seaside villa with a private terrace. Celeste took one room with the kids. Alexander and Evelyn shared the other. The children squealed at the view. Evelyn stood at the edge of the terrace, blinking against the breeze. "This is unreal." "Get used to it," Alexander said behind her, sliding his arms around her waist. On the 5th night, after a long day of snorkeling and ice cream, they lay in bed with the door to the terrace wide open. The moonlight poured in. Evelyn traced small circles on his collarbone, her voice barely a whisper. "You think they know?" He nodded against her temple. "They sense it. Children always know before we speak." She pulled back slightly. "Should we tell them?" He exhaled, then met her eyes. Yes, it's time. They deserve to know what love looks like when it chooses to stay. Evelyn sat up, thoughtful. And if they get scared? He brushed her hair behind her ear. Then we show them it's safe, that this is not a replacement, it's a continuation, a new kind of family, not built on forgetting, but on healing. The next morning, Alexander took the kids for a walk on the beach while Evelyn stayed behind with Celeste, helping her prepare a picnic. Theo skipped stones. Luna collected shells. When they sat on a driftwood log, Alexander crouched in front of them. "I want to talk to you both," he said. "About something important. About Evelyn." Theo glanced at his sister, alert. "We know," Luna said simply. "You love her. She loves us. She's already part of us." Alexander smiled, stunned. "Is it okay with you if I tell her that?" Theo thought for a moment. "Only if she stays for real." "Forever?" Luna added. Alexander nodded slowly. "As long as she'll have me." Back at the villa, when Evelyn opened the door, the kids ran to her. No fear, no hesitation, just joy. And Alexander knew in that moment that this was no longer a secret to protect. It was a family being born. On the final night of the trip, Alexander reserved a table at the resort's oceanfront restaurant. Lanterns flickered on every table, and the breeze smelled of salt and promise. Evelyn wore a soft blue dress Luna had picked. Theo sat beside her, unusually talkative. As dessert arrived, Luna clinked her spoon against her glass and stood dramatically. "I'd like to make an announcement," she said, mimicking the hosts from the kids' club. "Our family is now official. Daddy loves Evelyn, Evelyn loves us, and Theo is still processing." Everyone laughed, including Theo, who nudged his sister with a grin. Alexander raised a glass of sparkling cider. "To the new chapter," he said. Evelyn lifted hers. "To the family we didn't expect, but needed more than we knew." The drive home was quiet and sun-drenched. Luna slept most of the way. Theo read. Evelyn rested her head against the window, holding Alexander's hand over the gear shift. No rush, no nerves, just stillness. The kind you only find when you stop fighting what's already yours. Back in Chapel Hill, the house didn't feel like it used to. It wasn't quiet. It was full of stories, laughter, and something deeper. Alexander no longer hesitated to touch her waist in front of the kids, or to leave his office door open when she passed by. One night, while Evelyn folded laundry, Theo walked in and sat on the bed. He was quiet at first, tracing lines on the comforter. "Are you going to live here forever?" he asked. Evelyn paused. "I hope so," she said. "But only if that's okay with everyone." Theo looked up, his voice small. "Will that make you my mom?" Evelyn sat beside him. "No one can ever replace your mom. Ever. But maybe I can be someone new. Not instead of her. Just next to her, if you let me." He nodded slowly. "Can I still call you Evelyn?" "Of course." He leaned into her shoulder without a word. She wrapped her arms around him, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. It wasn't triumph. It was trust. And that was more valuable. The next morning, Alexander brought it up over breakfast, not as a question, but a certainty. "We should talk about next steps," he said. "The way we live, where we live. I want you here permanently, not as a guest, not as staff, as mine, as ours." Evelyn didn't answer immediately. She wiped orange juice from Luna's chin and glanced at Theo, who was already smiling at his plate. Then she looked at Alexander. "Then let's start with one room." His breath caught. "Mine or yours?" She grinned. Hours. That weekend she visited her mother. She hadn't told her everything yet, just glimpses. Her mother opened the door in a floral robe, eyes tired but bright. Evelyn sat at the kitchen table and told her everything. About the kids, the house, Alexander, the choice. Her mother listened, quiet. When Evelyn finished, she reached across the table, her fingers warm. You found something sacred, she said. I see it in your face, I know that look. It's the one I wore when I met your father, before the pain, before the leaving. Evelyn's throat tightened. What if I'm too young? Her mother smiled. Sweetheart, youth doesn't make you unworthy. Only unkindness does, and I've never seen you more kind than when you talk about them. When she returned home that evening, Alexander was waiting at the door, sleeves rolled, barefoot, holding a wine glass. Everything okay? She nodded, walking into his arms. She said, I'm ready. That we're ready. He kissed her forehead. We've been ready, we just didn't know it. That night, Evelyn unpacked her bags in Alexander's room, their room now, folding her clothes into the drawer beside his. Celeste passed in the hallway and gave a small bow. About time, she muttered, amused. Now I can stop pretending I don't hear two mugs in the sink every morning. Later, while brushing her hair at the mirror, Evelyn looked at her own reflection and whispered, This is home. And for the first time in her life, the mirror didn't argue. The mornings looked different now. Evelyn woke beside Alexander, kissed his shoulder before slipping into the kitchen, and helped Luna braid her hair while Theo recited facts about black holes. It wasn't magical, it was real, and real was more precious than any fairy tale she'd imagined. Their days flowed with gentle chaos. Homework sprawled across the dining table, socks lost in corners, Celeste humming old tunes while reorganizing the spice rack. Evelyn no longer felt like a visitor. Her toothbrush sat beside his. Her books took over the living room shelves. Evelyn began writing again. Late at night, after the house had gone still, she'd curl up on the sofa with her laptop and whisper her thoughts into stories. One in particular grew into something more. A children's book about a little girl who plants a garden in a house that had forgotten how to grow. Alexander read the draft in one sitting, quietly. When he finished, he looked up and said only, One thing, this isn't fiction, this is us. She smiled and kissed his hand. Then let's make sure the ending is good. One Thursday afternoon, while Alexander was in a meeting and Celeste was out shopping, Evelyn noticed Luna quieter than usual. She touched her forehead. Warm. Too warm. Luna leaned into her and murmured, My belly feels wiggly. Evelyn's heart skipped. She tucked Luna into bed, kept her hydrated, and sent Alexander a message. He was home in 20 minutes, jacket in hand, worry all over his face. Is she okay? Evelyn nodded. Just a virus, I think. But I've called the pediatrician, just to be safe. He sat beside the bed, brushing Luna's hair. You handled it better than I could have. That night, Evelyn stayed awake next to Luna, letting the little girl sleep against her chest. Alexander watched from the doorway, arms crossed, silent. The moonlight made Evelyn's face glow like something sacred. She wasn't a guest in his life anymore. She was the center of it. The fever broke by morning. Luna woke with a dry mouth and a sleepy, "Thank you." Evelyn smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Always." Theo appeared moments later holding a drawing. "It's all of us," he said. "Even when she's sick, we're still whole." 2 nights later, Alexander asked Celeste to take the kids out for dinner and a movie. Evelyn raised an eyebrow when the house went silent. "You bribed them? With milkshakes, didn't you?" He shrugged. I needed the house to ourselves. I had something in mind. He led her to the backyard where lights had been strung between the trees. A small table sat beneath the oak, candles flickering, their hideout still standing in the corner like a witness to everything they had built. Evelyn gasped. "You did all this?" "I had help," he said, pulling out a chair for her. Theo chose the lights. Luna picked the flowers. Celeste made sure I didn't set anything on fire. She laughed, then grew quiet. "Why tonight?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Because the story doesn't have to be done to deserve a chapter like this." He opened it. A simple ring, gold, delicate, with a tiny sapphire. "Evelyn Silva, will you keep building this with me?" Her breath caught, eyes wide. Not because she didn't expect it, but because she finally felt the full weight of being chosen. Not saved, not offered a place, but chosen. By the man, by the children, by the life they had created. "Yes," she whispered, tears falling freely. 1,000 yeses. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. No fireworks. No audience. Just them. And a garden of memories under a Carolina sky. Later that night, Evelyn wrote a single sentence at the top of her new manuscript. "Some homes are built with walls, others with hearts," and she knew, with absolute certainty, she had found both. They told the children the next morning. Not with a grand speech, but over pancakes. Alexander poured syrup, cleared his throat, and said, "We have some news." Evelyn reached for Luna's hand. "Theo Lou, we're getting married," Alexander said simply. Luna dropped her fork. "Like, married?" Evelyn nodded. "Yes, but nothing changes unless you want it to." Luna squealed, arms wrapping around Evelyn's waist. "Finally!" Theo didn't react at first. He just stared at his plate, thoughtful. Then he asked, "Does this mean we all share the same last name now?" Alexander smiled. "Only if you want to." Theo nodded once. "Then I'm good." And just like that, the world tilted toward something sweeter. News traveled quickly, but they didn't make it public. Close friends and a few colleagues were told over coffee, in phone calls, with laughter tucked between casual words. Celeste called it the most obvious plot twist in the history of domestic stories. They hosted a small celebration in the backyard. Fairy lights, homemade lemonade, and music Theo picked from his favorite jazz playlist. Luna wore a flower crown she made herself. Evelyn wore a white sundress that danced every time the wind remembered how to touch her. Alexander stood beside her with a quiet kind of pride, the kind that doesn't need an audience to be complete. When his friends toasted, he didn't raise his glass immediately. He looked at her first. Only when she smiled did he lift it. To the story we didn't plan, but needed. A week later, Evelyn received an email. She opened it on the porch, heart thumping. The publisher who had seen her draft wanted to acquire the manuscript, not just as a book, but as part of a new Healing Narratives children's series. They called it Gentle Magic with Roots. She called Alexander, voice trembling. "They want it." He was silent for a second. "Of course they do." That night he bought a cake with the words, "To the one who made our house a book." Evelyn cried, before she could blow out the candle. The following Saturday she gathered everyone in the backyard. Celeste brought blankets. Alexander carried cushions. The kids brought flashlights and notebooks. Under the glow of string lights and a sleepy moon, they returned to the little cabin they had built months ago. Inside, nothing had changed, except them. Luna curled on one side. Theo sat cross-legged, notebook in hand. Evelyn opened her printed manuscript and looked at them. "I want to read something to you. It's about a house, a lonely one. Until a girl planted something in the garden. Her voice was soft but sure. The words painted memories in the air, of grief and laughter, of days when everything seemed too quiet, and then of moments that slowly, word by word, brought the silence back to life. She didn't name the characters. She didn't need to. Luna interrupted once. "Is this about us?" Evelyn smiled. "It's about people who lost something, and then grew something new." Theo whispered, "That sounds like us." Alexander, from the doorway, said nothing, but his eyes glistened in the dark. When she closed the final page, no one moved, not even the air. Luna leaned her head against Theo. Theo leaned into Evelyn's arm, and Alexander stepped inside, kneeling beside them. "That story," he whispered, "might be my favorite." She looked around. One family, one space, one story that had rewritten them all. Outside, the wind passed through the trees like it was exhaling, as if the house, the garden, the old pain had all agreed. This was where the healing was real. In the months that followed, the house became less of a place and more of a pulse. Mornings started with Luna's half-sung requests for waffles, Theo's quiet presence at the window, and Evelyn moving between kitchen and kisses with a calm rhythm she never thought Saber Evelyn's. Book moved forward in the publishing process. Between edits and video calls, she managed school runs, bedtime routines, and wedding planning. It was thrilling, and sometimes quietly overwhelming. Some nights, she sat in the kitchen long after everyone slept, just breathing. The wedding was set for spring, a soft garden ceremony with close friends and family. Evelyn's mother was the first person she told. They sat on the worn living room couch of her mother's apartment, sunlight fading behind them, and Evelyn whispered, "I said yes." Her mother looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. "You didn't just say yes to a man. You said sim to uma vida." Evelyn laughed through tears. "You're going to come, right?" Her mother reached over, holding her face gently. "I wouldn't miss it for anything, minha filha." Back at the house, preparations unfolded slowly, intentionally. Alexander let Evelyn make the decisions, but always listened. Celeste helped where she could, calling vendors, tasting cakes, reminding Evelyn to breathe when things got too loud. Weddings are mostly noise. What matters is what comes after. Luna made drawings of the wedding dress daily. Theo pretended not to care, but one night asked if he'd need to make a speech or something. Evelyn reassured him. "You don't have to say anything you don't want to." He thought for a moment. "Then maybe I want to say something." The dress Evelyn chose had long sleeves, soft ivory fabric, and small buttons down the back. Elegant, understated, hers. Her mother helped her try it on for the first time, holding the zipper and whispering, "I never imagined I'd see you this radiant." Evelyn smiled in the mirror. "I never imagined I'd feel it." But even joy carried quiet shadows. Some mornings, Evelyn would pause in the hallway mirror, her hair half-pinned, and ask herself, "Am I doing enough? Being enough?" Not out of insecurity, but because love now lived in so many rooms, and she felt all of them. One evening, while folding laundry, Alexander asked softly, "Are you still Evelyn?" She paused. "I think I'm becoming a version of her I haven't met yet." He nodded, kissed her temple. "Then she must be incredible. But don't forget the version that brought you here." That night she called her mother. "Did you ever wonder if being a woman meant having to split yourself in too many directions?" Her mother chuckled. "Every day. The trick is not pretending you're whole. The trick is loving the pieces enough to keep showing up." Evelyn didn't write anything that night, but she didn't need to. In the weeks leading to the wedding, her mother started visiting more, sometimes just to sit with Luna while Evelyn worked, or to cook moqueca on a rainy day. Theo slowly warmed to her, especially when she brought him books about stars and sea monsters. Celeste and her mother became an unexpected duo, organizing details Evelyn had forgotten, sharing tea in the sunroom, laughing about how these children need 3 women to keep them alive. Evelyn once walked in to find them rearranging centerpieces while humming the same song. One afternoon, Theo handed Evelyn a folded note. Inside was a sketch of a house under a sky full of stars. 4 figures stood below, and 2 women behind them holding candles. "That's Grandma," he said. "And Celeste, they keep the light." The week before the wedding, Evelyn sat with her mother in the garden. "You've been quiet," she said. Her mother smiled. "I'm just watching. You've built something beautiful, and not everyone knows how to hold coisas frágeis sem quebrar. But você segura com amor." Evelyn's eyes welled. "I just hope they never feel like I'm not enough." Her mother took her hand. "They already call you home." That night, Alexander found her writing again. Not for the publisher, not for the launch, just for herself. She wrote about motherhood that isn't born from biology, love that doesn't arrive loudly, and belonging that grows like roots in silence. She titled the page, "The Women Who Held Me." And she didn't stop writing until the sun peeked through the blinds. The garden was quiet that morning, kissed by a light spring breeze that smelled faintly of jasmine. Evelyn arrived early with her mother and Luna, both dressed in soft pastel tones. Theo wore a slate blue suit, sleeves slightly too long but pride straightening his spine. Celeste stood by the entrance, organizing chairs, coordinating soft music, and occasionally dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief she swore she wouldn't need. "Don't mind me," she muttered. "Just allergies and overwhelming joy." The guest list was small, 30 people exactly. Friends, a few colleagues, and family that had stayed through more than seasons. White garden chairs curved in a crescent, petals lined the grass, and a small arch of woven branches framed the altar space. Alexander arrived with Theo. His suit was dark gray, simple, and his cufflinks bore tiny stars, a quiet tribute to Theo's first story about space and home. When he saw Evelyn across the field, he didn't look away once. His smile softened like it had waited years to fully land. Evelyn walked down the aisle with her mother on one side and Celeste on the other. Neither of them wore matching dresses. Neither cared. Evelyn held their arms tightly, her step steady, her heart louder than the music. Luna tossed petals just ahead, spinning halfway through for flair. Theo waited beside his father, holding the rings in a velvet pouch he had triple-checked. "You look like a poem," Alexander whispered when Evelyn reached him. She smiled, tears already forming. "And you look like a line I've read 100 times but only just understood." The officiant welcomed them simply. "We're not here to start a story. We're here to honor the one that's already been written." Evelyn and Alexander had written their own vows. They didn't practice them out loud. They wanted the words to shake. Evelyn went first. "You gave me a home I didn't know I needed, and when I feared I might disappear into everyone else's needs, you reminded me I was still whole. I vow to choose us even on the hard days, especially then." Alexander's voice was lower than usual when he replied, "You didn't come to fill a space. You came to plant something where nothing was growing. I vow to never forget what it took for you to stay. I vow to stay too, in every way." Luna clapped before anyone else. Theo cleared his throat like he wasn't crying. Evelyn's mother mouthed, "Meu Deus," and Celeste whispered, "I should have worn waterproof mascara." They kissed softly. No show, just soul. And the garden seemed to exhale. The reception was gentle. Laughter, light music, homemade food, and a small chocolate cake with strawberries on top. Evelyn danced with Alexander, then with Theo, then with her mother. Luna tugged at Celeste's hand. "We're really a real family now." Celeste smiled. "You always were. Today you just put flowers on it." As the sun dipped below the trees, Alexander pulled Evelyn aside. They walked along the garden path hand in hand, her dress catching petals in the breeze. "I have something for you," he said. From his pocket he pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a poem, written in his own hand, titled, "The Day." She said yes without saying anything. She read it slowly, quietly, each line soft, honest, unfinished, like it knew it wasn't supposed to be perfect, just true. When she reached the end, she cried. That night, back at the house, their house, the kids already asleep and the stars leaning closer, Evelyn sat beside Alexander in bed. Her head rested on his shoulder, fingers tracing lazy circles on his wrist. "Can I tell you something?" she whispered. He turned to her, brushing her cheek. "Anything." She reached into the drawer, pulled out a small white envelope and handed it to him. Inside was a single word, written in Evelyn's handwriting. "Soon." Beneath it, a tiny drawing of 5 stick figures, and a 6th. Very, very small. His mouth parted, eyes wide, no words at first. Then softly, "You're—" Evelyn nodded. 7 weeks. He cupped her face, kissed her forehead and laughed. Not loudly, but like something in him had just healed deeper than he thought possible. They held each other long into the night, not as lovers, not as new spouses, but as two people who had finally stopped surviving and started expanding. They told the kids on a rainy Sunday morning, all curled up on the couch with blankets and cinnamon rolls. Alexander handed Theo a small box. Inside was a pacifier with a tiny note. "Coming this winter." Theo stared at it. "Wait, are we getting a dog?" Luna shrieked. "We're having a baby?" Evelyn laughed so hard she had to hold her stomach. "Yes, not a puppy, a person, a new person." Luna jumped up immediately, hugging her. "I want a sister." Theo blinked, processing, then nodded. "Or a brother. Either way, I call top bunk if they steal my room." Later that day, Luna made a welcome sign for the nursery, complete with glitter and misspelled love notes. Theo stayed quiet, but she caught him placing an old stuffed astronaut on the bookshelf in the baby's room. "Just in case they want to travel far," he murmured. There were moments of tension, of course. Luna asked if Evelyn would love the baby more. Evelyn pulled her close, kissed her hair, and said, "There's no more in love, just again." Theo once asked, "Will things change too much?" Alexander replied, "They'll change, but not what matters." As Evelyn's belly grew, so did the family's understanding. Luna talked to the baby at night, placing her favorite books against the bump. Theo started drawing blueprints for cribs with rocket boosters. He claimed it was a joke, but he measured the walls seriously. Evelyn's mother visited often, bringing homemade soups and quiet advice. "The second time you become a mother," she said, "is when you understand how strong you already. Whereas filha, esposa, madrasta, mujer." Evelyn cried in the laundry room after that, and smiled all evening. Celeste taught Luna how to fold onesies. Theo asked her if babies really cried all night. "Yes," she said without hesitation, "but they also smile in their sleep. That makes up for a lot." He nodded. "Then I'll be on smile duty." Alexander was more present than ever. He read pregnancy books, cooked dinners, kissed Evelyn's ankles when her back ached, and whispered things to the baby every morning before work. "He's going to be the softest kind of father," Evelyn told her mother. "The kind you never forget." As winter approached, the house changed again. Blankets appeared in every room. The crib stood ready. The mobile above it spun slowly, like stars finding their orbit. Evelyn sat in the rocker often, her hands over her belly, watching Luna and Theo chase each other down the hallway. The night before the baby came, Theo asked if he could sleep outside the nursery door. "Just in case he's scared," he said. Evelyn kissed his forehead. "I think you're the one who's ready." Luna drew a new picture. 5 stick figures holding hands under a moon. When their son was born, healthy, pink, and loud, they named him Elias. Evelyn held him first, then Alexander, then Luna, then Theo. No jealousy, just awe. Theo whispered, "Welcome home, man." Luna asked if he liked her singing. He hiccuped. She took it as a yes. Weeks passed. Nights were shorter. Love grew quieter, heavier, more grounded. One evening, while the kids were watching a movie and Elias slept on Alexander's chest, Evelyn sat on the porch with a cup of tea and a notebook she hadn't touched in months. She didn't write a story, just a sentence, a truth. Some families are born. Others are built one ordinary day at a time, until suddenly you realize you're standing inside everything you ever needed. And that was the last page, but never the end.